A second day of the strike called by Nigeria Labour Congress in solidarity with workers in Kaduna State yesterday descended into violence after young men suspected to be supporters of the state government attacked the marching protesters. A Rise correspondent has the details.
President, can you talk to continue to address
These youths decided to attack just as the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress was about to make a speech. But the unions have not been deterred, vowing to press on with their 5-day warning strike in Kaduna.
The action went successfully. Yes. We will continue with our action. Yes, if they won't, let them kill us. Yes, but we are going to also inform all unions. Yes, and the next line of action is to activate the decision of what they said. Yes, that if this peaceful protest fail, we should then activate a national protest rally. That will be activated. We will consult our necessary organs, and that will be activated. Once again, solidarity. We cannot be defeated. Let them not forget. Whatever goes around, Thank you.
Things could be about to get worse. The Electricity Workers Union says if the Kaduna State government continues to intimidate staff, they will withdraw services across the country. That could lead to a nationwide blackout.
Of you to stay firm, we have just come. For those of us in the power sector, if by tomorrow or next nothing happens, we are ready to escalate in the whole country. We want to send a message to the chairman of Governor Forum. We want to send a message to the Governor's Forum, who was issuing statement yesterday, to inform him that if they don't inform, if they don't direct, if they don't advise one of them, that none of them will feel the pains of this industrial action in Kaduna.
See, we have ended the protest here in Nepal roundabout. Although some few young miscreants were employed to come and distract us, but we are not distracted. We continue with the process we have concluded formally.
Some of those living in Kaduna say they support the strike and the governor should listen to workers' demands.
In support of them. And now everybody's stranded. We can't do anything. You can't go to the bank. You can't get money. We can't get work. You can't get anything. Everything is standby. Maybe by next tomorrow now, everybody cannot come out again. We are feeling it. Everybody is feeling it. This country belongs to everybody. You understand that this country belongs to everybody. Please, I'm begging him to just to do a very reasonable as a somebody, and it's not going to be there forever and ever. Very short time is living there.
It's problem they ground, no money, hungry too much. You have to fight the train us well. Yes, I'm going to continue like that. May no bring lights, may no bring water, I'm going to continue like that. If a mind come down, make it come set to us go. Now, see where we go walk, if pursue us come out. You know, give us where we go walk.
Which walk?
Now car wash will be pursue everybody come out for road.
How many years will you do car wash?
I don't do 20 years here, they do car wash. You come, you stay down a flower I put. So you know get where we they walk. Still they disturb us.
But it doesn't appear Governor Nasir El-Rufai is going to back down anytime soon. He is threatening to sack nurses if they don't get back to work. Awal Ibrahim, Arise News, Kaduna.
Another script, another playbook. Tunde, your views on this?
Well, I think this is the most disappointing turn of events. Rather than heading towards resolution, it seems that this situation is heading towards escalation. And I just feel that the governor of Kaduna State should get a crash course in Montesquieu's doctrine of separation of powers. He has no right to declare anybody wanted. It's equally unfortunate that there's now a directive in Kaduna State for attendance registers for public servants to be forwarded to the State Secretary General so that they can penalize or sack people who are on strike. It is their constitutional right to protest. And I also find it dismayed that Mr. Comrade Waba would say that he's prepared to die and, you know, really escalate, ratchet it up to that level. But he would say that when hoodlums with knives attacks them. This is becoming extremely messy. And I do hope that cool heads prevail and everybody goes to the table and resolves this issue. The residents of Kaduna are the ones bearing the brunt.
Dr. Abati?
Well, yesterday we made the point here that one, personally I was concerned that the hospitals were involved, that healthcare will not be available in the same manner in which free movement within Kaduna State had been disrupted, the railway line, the airport, and also a general state of anomy and anarchy, creeping anarchy in Kaduna State. And we recommended that we think that going to the negotiating table will be the best option, and that egos should be, suspended, and that muscle flexing will not help the situation. And I was quite glad when later yesterday, the Progressive Governors Forum, which is the umbrella body of APC governors, came together. Well, it looks like there's no time, so I better leave.
All right, we'll go for a quick break. We'll come back to you, Dr. Abati. Definitely have ample time after. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right on the Rising channel. Dr. Abati, back to you for your point. Back to you.
Okay, you still want me to comment on that
definitely,
subject?
please, your point.
Okay, I was going to say that, look, the Progressive Governors Forum yesterday, speaking through Governor Bagudu of Kebbi State, said more or less the same things we said yesterday about Kaduna State. And the Progressive Governors Forum is saying that Governor El-Rufai should not focus on muscle flexing, should go to the negotiating table with Labour to resolve this particular problem that is on the table. But apparently, Governor El-Rufai and the state government, including the head of service, Baratu Muhammad, Mrs., they seem to have taken a decision that they will have a showdown with organized labor in Kaduna State. Hence, yesterday, Governor El-Rufai went onto his Twitter handle. He said, one, he had declared Comrade Wahaba Ayuba a wanted person, along with members of the NLC National Executive. He did the same thing in 2017. In 2017, Ayuba Wahaba said, well, he was waiting to be arrested. Now, if the governor takes that position, it's like he's escalating the situation. He's provoking labor further. Two, he said that the labor action is an act of economic sabotage and an act of banditry, where Tundu made the point about the right to protest. If organized labor is raising issues, how does that amount to banditry if we're not dealing with ego and muscle flexing here? He says all nurses below the grade level of 14 have been sacked, and at grade level 14 officers should show up. He said also that an attendance register should be provided in all the MDAs in Kaduna State. Okay, what do we have in place in Kaduna State? A form of dictatorship?
Yes.
I think that the governor of Kaduna State is not handling the situation well. And the issue goes beyond Kaduna State right now. And I hope that the security agencies and even President Buhari himself will look into this so that Kaduna does not become the catalyst, the lightning rod, the ignition point for a major national crisis. Governor El-Rufai should know, that Nigeria is at a very delicate point at this moment. People are unhappy. People are suffering from inflationary crisis. There is angst. There is anarchy. There is anomy in the land. It should not turn his state into the catalytic point for a major crisis in Nigeria. We saw that happening in the First Republic, when crisis in the in the Western region caused major problem in the country. So I think that the governor needs to be a bit more sober, a bit more relaxed, and a bit more willing to negotiate with organized labor. Organized labor, they've said that they will escalate the thing on a national scale if care is not taken. And if there's an arrest warrant for Wahaba, the NLC president, and he's arrested or his officials are arrested, you are likely to have a national crisis. I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Batu. What surprises me in all of this mostly is the fact that hoodlums were throwing stones and assaulting people, and no one single arrest of the hoodlums has been made by the police. We've not seen any statement to that effect.
Well, NLC's position is that those hoodlums were organized in the same manner in which we saw organized hoodlums at the Lekki toll gate during the NSAS protest, in the same manner in which we saw organized hoodlums in Abuja during the NSAS project. We cannot have a situation whereby the state or any of these agents, be they governors or heads of service, will be escalating the security situation in the country. And nobody should fold their arms and think that this is about Kaduna. It's about Nigeria.
Yes.
That's the subtext.
Yes. I mean, that's it. Thanks. We'll go to Ruth Sodiri. We'll talk business. Ruth, if you're ready.
We're ready. Good morning.
Yeah, Ruth, go straight ahead. Take it away. I mean, shocking times, but take it away.
The Kaduna situation is something else. Again, fascinating economic model.
Ruth Safolabi.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tundu.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all of you. There's so much going on. Front page, I feel like I'm channeling the spirit of Mr. Efeni. The 2.3 trillion naira external loan requested by President Buhari. Divided analysts, very much looking forward to Bismarck Rwane, member of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council and CEO MD of the Financial Derivatives, coming to talk about that. But President Buhari's letter to the National Assembly requesting another $6.18 billion. It's divided analysts. He says the funds are needed to plug the budget. We don't have the money, and it's 13 trillion naira budget. You've got a deficit of about 5.2 trillion or so. It has to be plugged. Where's the money going to come from? It's going to be a mix of bilateral, multilateral loans. Nigeria is also going to go back to the euro bond market in order to look at. I think it's no more than 3 billion or so that's going to come from the euro bond market, depending on how things work out there. But we've had low interest rates generally, even though inflation is climbing in the United States, which has kind of been pushing. If you look at the US 10-year yield, it's kind of going up. That's what determines how much interest Nigeria will pay on its euro bond. But euro bonds, multilateral, bilateral loans, all that is coming together for what Nigeria essentially wants to get in order to finance power, agricultural, other projects. Just a month ago, we talked about a 995 million euro and I think $1.1 billion loan that was supposed to be for agricultural projects. So a lot of folks are talking about the debt sustainability, debt service to revenue ratio. Doctor, you've talked about it. Tundu's talked about it. Rufai has talked about it. Economists of the highest order that have been on the morning show have talked about this. But the question is, what do you do? We need the funds. And it's essential. So the only issue is that, of course, there's been talk of mortgaging the future. He's leaving office in less than 2 years. So there's ways and means that being turned into a loan. There's a whole lot there as far as debt sustainability. But in the immediacy, this is funds that are needed right now. To Shell, another front page story in today's This Day newspaper. I encourage everybody to read as well. Shell is looking to divest its Nigerian onshore assets. This is basically a portfolio reallocation where Shell is looking at divesting from its aging onshore assets and moving more to deep waters. Shell has had a number of issues. They've lost some court cases to host communities. They've suffered vandalism of pipelines. There's militancy in the Gulf of Guinea that's affected them. So they're saying, look, we're going to just divest these, cycle out. Think about it, you're holding stocks and you want to cycle out into fixed income or treasury bills, something like that. So they want to go into more deep water. Timipre Silva, a number of, he was the Minister of Petroleum Resources, has said, look, it's not a good idea if Shell completely up and leaves from Nigeria, but that's not what the case is. It's essentially just a portfolio reallocation. From Shell to, by the way, I'm sure Michael Wilson will talk about this. The last 24 hours, there's been a whole lot of news on renewable energy and climate change and everything. And Shell, all these other companies. If you remember Obaseki's speech from where he talked about printing money, that got the news. But remember, he also said that oil and gas companies in Nigeria are moving towards renewable energy. That didn't really make the news, but Obaseki said that. It's kind of prophetic looking at what's happening now. To agriculture, let's take a listen to Governor Emefiele, who for some weird reason is being criticized as allocating agricultural loans to only one part of the country. Let's take a listen to him right now.
Out of almost close to about 600 to 700 billion that has been disbursed towards our agricultural programs, particularly the Anchor Borers program, over half of this sum, more than 300 billion, has been disbursed either through Anchor Borrowers Program or through states or to companies that are operating in the southern part of the country.
Some weird reason. Folks, people think that because he said that, it's, I mean, he said half is going to this. By the way, he was in Ekiti State at the, are we taking a break?
Yeah, we're taking a quick break. We'll come back to you, my friend. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Rotus, back to you.
Yes. So I don't know why the central bank governor is being criticized for apparently having, showing nepotism to one part of the country in the agricultural, for agric loans. Anchor Borrowers Program has been around the country. Before he was in Ekiti State, he was in Kebbi, all right? He mentioned Kwara, Kogi, Niger State, a number of states besides, a number of other states besides the southern states. So him saying that half of the loans have gone to, the southern part, well, where did the other half go? The other half obviously went to the northern part of the country. Other than that, lastly, France is pushing for $100 billion of special drawing rights from richer countries to go to African countries. This is the conclusion of the Paris Africa Summit, and is also wanting to push for vaccine intellectual property waivers in order for African countries to be able to produce vaccines themselves.
We just got 5 minutes, but for me, great special drawing rights, but it's more wahala when you look at it. Special drawing rights to be able to have a pool of more funds for leaders that will mismanage the money out of the African continent. An intellectual property vaccine waiver, I think, is just useless. Where Africa doesn't have the logistical capacity to produce the vaccine, and you're pushing for intellectual waivers.
Well, South Africa,
how about putting the infrastructure in place, having a scheme in place to be able to build infrastructure points to churn out vaccine all over Africa, then push the waivers in then. I mean, you can't just say we're clearing, and that's the problem with the world. You're clearing intellectual property rights, okay, go ahead. Then where do you put the infrastructure in place to do the work of producing the vaccine?
The thing is, again, South Africa has been the one spearheading this. They are the most industrialized nation, African nation on the continent, and also there's the fact that we have not the vaccine scaling on African continent has not reached the level where it is in developing nations. So there's that, the fallout of that is not going to be.
And we also go one step further. We do that, put a case on South Africa to produce for the whole continent. And when South Africa has problems just like India is having now, then we stall on vaccine production.
Well, not for the whole continent. I get your argument, but not for the whole continent.
Why can't we make it, why can't we make the entire continent a vaccine center? And concerning Shell, everybody's going deep water, so there's no news about what Shell is doing. Deep water is the real deal now. I mean,
more expensive.
More expensive anyway.
I want to comment on Emefiele.
Yes.
I think the reaction from the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, is coming rather late. About a month ago, that was when the story broke, and Efeni brought the story in Newspaper Review, and he was saying that, stakeholders in the southern part of Nigeria are concerned that Emefiele is from the south, but he seems to have been concentrating more on helping farmers in the north under the Anchor Borrowers Program. And I recall that on that occasion, I spoke up, and I said, no, just about 2 weeks earlier, Emefiele had given a public account of what the CBN had been doing under the Anchor Borrowers Program, and that the report that I read, the account that he gave, showed that this was a national program with a spread, and that there was no attempt on his part or the CBN at nepotism. Now, that will be like 1.5 months away now. The Efeni report came about a month ago. Now, you have Godwin Emefiele now using the opportunity of the launch of the first ever rice pyramid program in the southern part of the country to say that indeed under the Anchor Borrowers Program, there's been equity, there's been fairness, and that in fact southern states, including Ekiti, Edo, through Presco and Okomo, have all benefited from the program. Now, it has to take the CBN governor a whole month to respond to a major allegation out there in the public domain. So I guess, well, you could say better late than never. But my point is that maybe his communications team will have to be more proactive. When these issues come up like that, you know, they have to go out there, restate the statistics, because repetition is part of the business of a communication. Unless you repeat something again and again, people may not remember. They go with the latest information. But the clarification that is offered is useful, and I hope that the concerned stakeholders who spoke up about 1.5 months ago will be glad that the CBN governor has addressed the matter. But then, a lot more needs to be done, and we need to restate the point that the CBN getting involved in so many aspects of the economy is not even in the best interest of the CBN itself, because the CBN for quite a while has been carrying the load of both fiscal and monetary policies. And we'd like to have a CBN that focuses on its core mandate. But whatever the CBN has done under Godwin Emefiele, in my view, is helpful. As for the loan, the 5.6 trillion, that's the figure that President Buhari is looking for.
2.3 trillion.
Is it 2.3 trillion?
Yeah, so 6.1
we have a
billion
deficit.
Yeah,
we have a deficit of 5.6 trillion.
Trillion, correct.
Well, the question that the critics are asking is that there's been no enough transparency in this regard. Two, all the external loans privileges that have been approved by the federal government. It's not enough to just say we're going to use it to focus on infrastructure. Which infrastructure? We need more specific details. And then, of course, the DMO, Directorate of Debt Management, is always saying, we're still within the sustainable range, and Nigeria has a structure to focus on it. Well, the people ask the question, and I think it's a legitimate question. All the loans we have been taking, what have we done with it? Right. If we say we can still sustain the debt, okay, where is this debt going? Is it going to the sponsorship of 100 special assistants, a convoy that is over-bloated? Where is the evidence, that the money we are borrowing is to finance productivity, not conspicuous consumption?
Thank you so much, Roxus. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We'll move on to Michael Wilson. Michael, good morning. How are you? From London.
Good morning. Fine, thank you. Inflation is the big worry, really. A lot of results out and a lot of movement last night on Wall Street. The big one, of course, is the FOMC minutes, which come out later, much later today. So the big question really is this the last rites of a massive bull market, or are we heading towards a correction? The word on the market is that we're heading towards a correction because there's a lot of extra money around at the moment. But we'll see about that. Equities in Asia follow Wall Street lower. S&P down a bit. Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix and Alphabet all closed lower on Wall Street. In Asia, futures and all those indices are actually down. Tail chasing, retail spendings, market sent the Nikkei down about 1.5%. Reports the European Parliament will freeze its investment in its investment agreement with China. That's weighing on Chinese equities, as you'd imagine. CSI down about 0.1%. China's been warning on cryptos. The PBOC, the People's Bank of China, and also 3 Chinese banking and payment bodies have issued a statement saying financial institutions should basically stay away from them. The regulatory risk, therefore, is rising massively around the world as far as Bitcoin. It fell yesterday by 13%, below $40,000 per coin for the first time for a very long time. The US has postponed its China stock trade ban. You remember it imposed a ban on anything effectively linked to the Chinese military. It was due to take effect on May the 27th. Now it's been postponed to June the 11th. There's no indication that they're going to change their minds about it. It's just apparently allowing United States companies further time to adjust their portfolios. Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, has been pressing for higher taxes. She's also, because that's the stimulus plan and the rest of it, the infrastructure program, which Joe Biden's been proposing. She's also said that companies should lower their barriers to foreign competition. See that when it happens. Over to here, and the UK inflation numbers more than doubled for April, 1.5% from 0.7%, almost entirely driven by energy price effects, which will thought to be only temporary. Rising factory gate and commodity prices doing it there. Food prices still very short of the Bank of England's 2% inflation rate, but the speed of that move suggests that we could get 2% in short order. Again, the question is, do we look through this? I suspect we probably do. UK Jaguar Land Rover's owner Tata Motors announced a quarterly loss. It's a shock quarterly loss of more than $1 billion. What they were doing, actually, they wrote off $2.1 billion for the revamp of its Jaguar Land Rover UK luxury car business. It also said that this crimp in semiconductor supply will hurt it, although it's very much looking towards China to help gross annual turnover in 5 years to £30 billion, £3 billion profit. That's a 5-year programme from them. UK farmers have reacted against any kind of free trade pact with Australia. Many countries facing imports, farming imports from Australia face tariffs. Now that may be adjusted. In a post-Brexit world, the farmers will have to get used to this. Underneath it all, though, the politicians may alter the terms of it, but the deal, we talked about this before, is about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which includes, it's a very sprawling trade group, includes New Zealand, Chile, Japan, Vietnam, as well as Australia. If we get that, then we've got a chance of some kind of leverage as far as China's overseas trade plans are concerned. Eurostar, still in the UK, our cross-channel, under-the-channel railway service, has managed to get investment to help it over the medium term. It's fighting for survival. It's only running one train a day between London St Pancras and Paris-Gare du Nord, and one a day between Amsterdam and Brussels. But again, if demand picks up and people are allowed to travel, then they will do that. Sterling's up on UK growing optimism. We talked about those jobs figures yesterday and the fact that growth in the UK looks rather good. Commodities, well, oil is suffering, really. A news report that progress had occurred on a US-Iran deal. Now, that's been denied by the main players in that, but it meant it just had a slight depressing effect on the oil price, down to $68 a barrel. Gold's rally shows signs of fatigue. But basically, the big one today is the FOMC minutes coming up from last month. It's really a question of, now that miss on jobs last Friday will not affect these figures because these are for last month. And even so, Jay Powell has said he's going to look through these temporary surges. And this sort of underlines it, doesn't it, really? We had those massive jobs figures a month ago. Then this month, not so good. In fact, a major miss. So hopefully people will actually stay calm. That's the message this morning. All right. Don't worry, stay calm.
All right, Michael, thank you so much for that. Let me hop on inflation. Could it be the economy, because the economy is opening up, obviously, that's why you're having those pressures. And is it time to start dialing down those checks, as regards palliative checks, to the Americans? Walmart, for instance, had a marvelous first quarter. Lovely numbers came out of Walmart, one of America's biggest retailers. Is this just the time to dial down, start toning down those checks across states? And secondly, I want to talk about, what is going on currently in France, in Paris. African leaders are there for the finance summit, and they're talking about SDR, special drawing rights. Is this the way to go? Is it to give leaders that they have not managed money effectively the right to go get more money from IMF? Is that the key?
Macron has got elections coming up, and I think that you've got to put in the political versus the financial. Politics is about selling something. Financial is about doing something. And I think at the moment what we're seeing in France is all sorts of things. Debt relief to Africa and all this kind of stuff coming out of Macron. Fully understand that, fully understand why he's doing it, but it is politics. Anything right now in France is politics. Their economy is not doing very well. Their vaccine output is not doing very well. The vaccination progress is not doing very well. Macron has to play to his strengths. And if that involves SDR, if that involves loan relief to Africa, then that's what he'll actually do. As far as the unemployment checks are concerned, we are where we are. I think that America was quite right to try to do something. Remember, this came out of the Trump administration into the Biden administration. Will it cause inflation? It might do. But when we're not the only people looking at these figures. And what I trust is what Jay Powell has said at the Fed, saying that he will look through, he will understand those kind of things. That's not going to last forever. Growth will not last forever. There's a huge amount of unemployment damage to take care of in the United States. And that will, although we're going to see these blips further into the year, I think it's going to be really into next year when we can actually take stock of what's really going on.
Well, Michael, very quickly, on Friday, the G20 is going to have a global health summit. And Mario Monti, former Prime Minister of Italy, who is the chairman of the WHO Committee on Global Health and Sustainable Development, is saying that one of their proposals to that meeting, is the committee that he leads, is to say that the credit rating of countries will be affected to the extent to which they support the global financial ecosystem with support for the pandemic. Now, but how do you determine what is sufficient? That, for me, is a big question. The second issue has to do with China clamping down on digital currency, cryptocurrencies, and all of that. When I read the story, I thought, well, Mr. Wilson has been vindicated because China wants to, assert its own control. China also wants to protect interests. China is also worried about the fears and doubts that cryptocurrency has raised, particularly in the last few days, where the fear index has dropped from 71 to 21. I would just also want your quick comment on that. And I guess the Nigerian authorities, who in fact acted before China in this regard, will also feel vindicated.
Well, I think, first of all, as far as China's concerned, as you know, they've been experimenting with their own digital currency, but that's for payments. That's nothing to do with Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. You're quite right. I think that China is worried by the extent of anything that pushes outside its finally defined borders. So yes, that's what they're going to do, and I think there's a technical risk about this until there is a real move for these currencies to actually get a big place on the world stage, until they are regulated, until they are completely transparent, then I think you're going to find this regulatory thing. Number two, as far as the world is concerned, as far as global pandemics and credit ratings and so on, listen, the WHO is not the authority, is it? I mean, their advice was not to close borders when the pandemic started, and yet look what happened. So is that good advice from the World Health Organization? No, I don't think it is. Should they be talking about economies? They can do if they wish. Mario Draghi, I would have thought, would be better applying his talents to Italy and making sure that Italy, with its huge debt problems, actually, and the amount of money it's got from the central bank of the EU, the ECB, in its pandemic relief, ought to be concentrating on its own problems. I think credit agencies, remember, they did not see the financial crash coming in 2008, any of them. So there's a lot of big talk about this, a lot of macro talk. The thing is, fix your own problems first of all. You were talking about it earlier on in the program. There is no point in talking about vaccines unless you have infrastructure installed there to do it. And also, it's not just about lifting the regulations about the vaccines again that you were talking about. You have to be making these things in secure facilities. Now, until those things happen, those are the kind of things that the WHO ought to be talking about, not credit rating agencies.
Oh, goodness me, Michael. Feels like Moody and Fitch all again this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you. We'll move over quickly to Adeswa Mora this morning. Adeswa?
Has infected more than 164 million people across the globe and has killed at least 3.4 million people as well. Various degrees of restrictions are back in place across much of Asia as the virus makes a resurgence in countries where it had seemed to be well under control, including Mongolia, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Now, China, which has all but stamped out local infections, has seen new cases apparently linked to contact with people arriving from abroad. However, the resurgence hasn't come close to the disaster we're seeing in India and in some parts of Europe, but it is a keen reminder that the virus remains resilient. I guess this is where you say it is not over until it is over. Here in Nigeria, 29 new infections were reported from just 2 states, Lagos and Rivers, with Lagos posting 18 of the 29. No deaths from coronavirus were recorded in the last 24 hours in the country. Then an additional 19,342 Nigerians were inoculated with a jab of the AstraZeneca vaccine in the last 24 hours, according to this data on your screen by the NPHCDA, the primary agency here in the country. Nigeria has set aside half of the doses received so far to enable second doses, even though the WHO is urging countries to vaccinate as many people as possible with first doses. Now, meanwhile, the Food and Drug Regulator in Nigeria has granted approval for a conditional emergency use authorization for the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. The approval brings to 3 the number of COVID-19 vaccines approved for use in Nigeria by NAFDAC. AstraZeneca and Pfizer were authorized in February and April, respectively. The Director General of the agency, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, said after a thorough evaluation, the NAFDAC Vaccine Committee concluded that the data on the vaccine were robust and met criteria for efficacy, safety, and quality. Now, you discussed this with Rotus moments ago, a call for lifting of vaccine patents to allow their manufacture on the African continent. Well, as the continent scrambles for vaccines and watch wealthy nations try to vaccinate themselves out of the pandemic, French President Emmanuel Macron, who was the host of the summit, says the current situation is simply not sustainable, it is unfair and inefficient. On his part, the chairperson of the African Union and president of the DRC, President Felix Tshisekedi, welcomes the idea. Now, he thinks manufacturing these vaccines on the continent is one way to significantly counter vaccine hesitancy. He says people will trust what they produce. There was also a consensus at this summit that the ambition of COVAX should move from 20% to 40%. Now, we know that the debate on patent waiver is not new and is highly polarized, but a more disturbing news for low and middle income countries, including Nigeria, came in yesterday with reports suggesting that India is not likely to resume major vaccine export until at least October. India is the largest manufacturer of the UN's COVAX program, and a longer than expected delay, of course, is set to worsen the supply shortages from the global initiative. This makes a perfect case for proponents of the vaccine patent waiver, you would say. And finally, this morning to the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, where plans are on the way to offer a third Sinopharm shot to people who already got 2 doses, amid concerns over the efficacy of the vaccine that's been the cornerstone of the country's speedy inoculation program. You recall that UAE has one of the fastest vaccine rollouts in the world, having administered 11.5 million doses to its population of about 10 million people. Now, infections have dropped in the country, according to authorities, to about 65% after peaking in January, but daily infections now remain below 2,000 since April 27th.
Well, quickly, let's start with India. Now, India has already about 25 million cases of infection, about 400,000 daily infection rate, and so India faces a problem. The Serum Institute of India had already made it clear that it was running out of raw materials. There was a point at which for about 9 days, the only vaccine doses that India had could only last 9 days. And then you find across the country, cremation centers overcrowded, hospitals overcrowded, death rate rising. Now, what India decided, even beyond the political leadership failure of the leadership of Narendra Modi personally, is to say, let us save ourselves first. Yeah. They adopted, beyond vaccine diplomacy, beyond all the politics of global solidarity, a decision to save India first. And the decision by the Serum Institute of India to say that, look, there will be no vaccines available for export. Existing contracts may not happen until we've been able to solve our own problem in India. It's a classic case of nationalism, of patriotism. Now, the WHO Director General, Tedros Ghebreyesus, refers to it as vaccine appetite. And okay, I guess he's in a position to say that. But I've always talked about lessons we can learn from elsewhere. Look at India. India has found itself in a difficult place. It's asking for help from everywhere. US has provided help, Germany has provided help, and it is saying, okay, whatever little thing that is available will be used to solve Indian problem. Now, Nigeria does not behave like that. Even when Nigeria is suffering, even when there are issues in Nigeria, Nigeria prefers to play Father Christmas. The big takeaway from this is that, look, your national interest comes first, no matter how difficult the situation may be in the world. And each time Nigeria is behaving like Father Christmas, what we don't have at home, they will go and give to other people elsewhere. India is saying that, look, charity begins at home. Yes. That's one lesson we can learn from there, but we just hope that the problem will be solved. And that takes me to your report about the Paris summit. Well, Mr. Michael Wilson thinks that it's all about politics, but I think it's important what Macron, President Emmanuel Macron, has done with regard to the support that is given to Africa, the support that he has given on the financial end for Sudan, and the resolution yesterday that France, and also I think Georgieva, the IMF chief, yeah, the two of them saying, look, Africa needs support with regard to the waiver of the patents. It's not just Africa. Other parts of the world, in the Western Pacific and elsewhere, and in Latin America, they also need that help. And WTO is providing its support because the WTO chief, Nigeria Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, says nobody is safe until everybody is safe. The argument by Big Pharma is that, look, it's not about global solidarity, this is not about vaccine equity. They are saying that it's about capacity. Yes. But we have seen the example of Egypt. Egypt is partnering with Sinopharm in China, and they are producing vaccines in Belgium. India and South Africa are both ahead in saying that waive these patents, okay? So I think it's not something that we can reduce just simply to the level of politics or to say that other countries do not have the capacity. Morocco, has 15% vaccination rate. And it's been able to do that also on the basis of partnership. Perhaps if you waive the patent, then there will be opportunities, countries will be challenged to look for opportunities to do more. After all, India is partnering, with companies in Europe, yes, to produce the AstraZeneca and other vaccines. So I don't think it's something we should put down. I think we should think more in terms of, one, France-Africa relations and the strategic implications. But there's no time to go into that leg of the analysis.
All right, thank you so much, Alice. I really appreciate it.